You ever hear somebody say, "Don't judge me. Don't judge me." And what they're really saying was, don't evaluate me different from the way you evaluate yourself. Don't think less of me. Don't criticize me. Don't condemn me. Don't stop loving me. That's what Jesus was talking about when he says, "Judge not, lest ye be judged." He was not saying, don't determine that what you're hearing or what you're seeing is right or wrong. He was saying how you treat the person who's doing wrong, how you treat the person who's doing right. How do you don't stop loving that person because he's talking about that type of judgment. And that's what he says here in Matthew chapter 7 verse 1 through 5. He says this, and I'm reading this out of the Amplified Bible. He says, "Do not judge," listen carefully, "and criticize and condemn others, so that you may not be judged, criticized, and condemned yourself." Notice what he focused on: judgment. He's not saying don't sit up and say, "Well, I'm not going to judge it whether or not it's right or wrong," but he says don't condemn. Condemn means to reduce the value of the person to zero. Criticize means to think and speak something negative about this person. He says here, for verse 2, "For just as you judge, criticize, and condemn others, you will be judged and criticized and condemned, and in accordance with the measure you use to deal out to others, it will be dealt back to you again." So if you're sitting up there criticizing someone else, don't be upset when they turn around and criticize you, because this is what he's saying: don't criticize and condemn others, because it's going to come back to you. And that's called an argument. That's what it is. It's an argument when two people are sitting around analyzing, criticizing, and condemning each other. He says, "Now, why do you stare from without at the very small particle?" In the King James, it says speck, "that is in your brother's eyes, but do not become aware and do not become aware of and consider the beam," King James says plank, "of timber that is in your own eye." How is it that you're ignoring you? How is it that you're ignoring that you have faults and failures? How is it that how is it that you're ignoring your sin and focusing on their sin? This is the lesson that Jesus is teaching. Verse 4, Matthew 7, verse 4. "Or how can you say to your brother or sister, 'Let me get the tiny particle or speck out of your eyes,' when there is beam of timbers in your own eyes?" What is he saying? The most important thing between you and this person is not what's wrong with them, but you recognize what's wrong with you. He's saying that's the issue here, is that you have ignored all the things that are wrong with you and turned the attention on them. So he's saying what's wrong with someone else, he sees as a speck. But the biggest problem is the plank, because the plank is blinding you to see that in some ways you are just like this person that you are condemning and you are criticizing. And then verse 5, he says, "You hypocrite, first get the beam of timber out of your own eye." In other words, this thing that's blinding you to see yourself first, to see yourself more than you see someone else. He says, if you're willing to take that evaluation of yourself and focus on yourself first, then you will be able, let me read this, and then you will see clearly to take the tiny particle or speck out of your brother's or sister's eye. When you first deal with you and you just focus on you, because most of the focus that Jesus is teaching here is about you, your faults, your failures, the things that you do wrong, the things that people don't know about you, but you are willing to negate all of that and push all of that to the side to focus on someone else. And there is a sickness in Christianity today where people refuse to look at themselves and always pointing the finger out. In Matthew 7:12, same chapter, he says, "So then, whatever you desire that others would do to you, to do for you, even so do also to and for them. For this sums up the law and the prophets." That's the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated. And if you don't want to be criticized, you don't want to be condemned, you don't want to be put on blast, you don't want to be on the internet calling people by name and analyzing and criticizing. If you don't want people to treat you that way, he says, don't do it to others. Why? Because the goal is love. The goal is loving people the way you want to be loved. Love can only love itself. I've said this on many occasions that if you can't refuse to see the person like you see yourself, you can't love that person. And when you do see the person the way you see yourself, then and only then can you love that person. And Paul said this in Ephesians: "Of anyone in their right mind is not going to hurt themselves." So when you see people the way you see yourself, you're not setting out to condemn them. You're not setting out to criticize them. When you deal with you, you will know how to deal with others. I hope this little message has been a blessing to you. We're asking people to hit like and share, to subscribe to our channel. We believe that we have a message that's helping people, and we want you to help us get the word out. Leave positive comments. Join me every Thursday morning at 10:30 a.m., or you can watch it at any time on YouTube, the Pastor J podcast. You can watch that on at any time as we continue to share these truths so that we can be a better us. So again, what's our message today? Before you try to take the small speck out of someone else's eyes, deal with the plank. The bigger issue is the plank that's in your eye.